Ladies and gentlemen, can we please get settled? Those who are outside, can you please come inside? All right. Time now is 11:25. So we've got 35 minutes. We need to finish promptly at 12 o'clock. And so we have come to the interesting part of our launch, where we are going to be engaging, interrogating, discussing the report. I am told, Minister, that we've got over 200 people that are in attendance, both physically and also virtually. And we've got people from different sectors. We've got people from civil society. We've got people from private sector. We've got people from government departments, science councils. Actually, I was asked certain questions regarding the report already. So I said to the gentleman, he must raise those questions with the minister, because we are still honored to have the minister with us. You know, those very, very challenging questions, Minister, more especially around funding. They have come up during the tea break. Without wasting time, we have roaming mics. I'm looking at the Secretariat to assist me. I do not got roaming mics, and then we will be taking questions, comments, and at the end, we will have the CEO or the experts to come and address some of the issues. And of course, if some are directed at Minister, since we still have the Minister with us, I'm sure he will be happy to take some of those questions. Can we please have some hands? Looks like CEO, Minister, it looks like the report was very clear. There are no questions, there are no concerns, there are no hands. Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Marshall Nelson. I'm from the Youth Media Movement based in a community called Mitchell's Plain in Cape Town. As you know, the strike is happening, but don't worry, we are here in support of the report. We call innovation. In terms of the report, it is highly appreciated. So one of the the things that I see from myself also playing in the training space is that when we talk science and innovation, sometimes we look at these words as to scare off our communities, because when you say science, you will see many young people or many people when they're in school, students when they're in school, they don't want to do maths and they don't want to do the science because they believe it's most probably complicated. As my learner colleague was saying earlier, it looks almost like for the nerds. But there is a much bigger need than just maths and science. The bigger need is making our people understand how technology can assist them. Basic. Like I showed earlier on, I can switch off this light by a touch of my button. Those are the basic things that doesn't require maths or science, but it requires just a little upliftment program. The awareness is where the problem that we are finding in the communities. There is not enough awareness programs being driven. Now, when you look at an organization like ourselves, we have an ROC, which is I'm the only Black person in the Western Cape to hold an operating license to fly drones. We also find it very difficult to fly because of certain, loopholes that we also have to jump through. So when we push for Black people or Black students to become drone pilots, that becomes another problem because the funding is not available. A drone course would cost you a massive amount of money, but also that becomes a problem for our people to access. So I'm just wanting to plea unto the leadership to see how best we can use even organizations that is already doing these kinds of work in the community to see how do we strengthen them so that they can widespread the stuff that we are doing. We don't need, and please don't get me wrong, it's not that we don't need universities, but everyone can't get to a university. Currently, right now, as we see, students are at home, so how would they access the information from the university? So there is organizations within communities, and we really need to see how best do we strengthen them so that this science and innovation becomes broader. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes,
Hello.
go ahead.
Lawrence Litter from the Rebel Group. Just two comments. The one is, I think if we look at the statistics that were presented, it actually, I mean, some of it is not where we want it to be, but if you look at Department of Science and Innovation's mandate, most of those things are actually going quite well. If you look at the demographic change, the productivity on articles and so on, but a lot of the problems are actually in the economy and are beyond the Department of Science and Innovation. So it's just a remark, and maybe the Minister or the DG want to comment on that. The other comment is around the new science, technology, innovation, I can't remember the exact name, university. I think this is a very positive development, and I was involved in the setting up of the African Advanced Institute for ICT in the early to mid 2000s, which later became Maraka and was set up by the CSIR. And I think there's a lot we can learn from that initiative of what works and what doesn't work. At that time, the analysis we did indicated that the real problem was at the postgraduate level, that we needed to give people a chance to go beyond the first degree, to do their master's degree, to do their PhDs. And we needed to look at it in a systemic way and understand why we leak people to jobs in the private sector that doesn't allow them to pursue research career. So just two comments from my side.
Thank you very much. Do we have more comments? There's a hand at the back.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Peggy Zulu from CIPC. I just want to comment on 2 points. The first one would be about the NSI, the National System of Innovation. Just to check whether we have a functional NSI or not. And for it to be functional, we have different players in the system. Just to check if we do have linkages that link different players in the system. When Dr. Cede was presenting them, talking about some indicators, for example, the patent, he look at the patent granted at the EPO. And the reason why perhaps I would think you look at the patent granted at the EPO is because they do something that in South Africa we don't do. For example, when we grant a patent in South Africa, we don't conduct what we call the substantive search and examination of patent applications. We just look at the formalities, then we grant a patent. But when you look at the EPO, we look at the patentability requirement of that particular application, if that application meets those requirements or not. So it's something that we look at. If our system perhaps has proper linkages, we'll know that the right hand will be able to talk to the left hand. For example, the patents are granted under the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition under the CIPC. So perhaps, for example, to use the indicator in South Africa, we must also do what perhaps is done in the other offices. So that would be one point. And I also saw during the presentation by Dr. Cede, when he was comparing benchmarking with other risk countries, he made use of what we call utility model, and of which maybe currently something we don't grant in South Africa. My last comment, I think, would be a little bit controversial. I see the push of gender equality, and I'm for that. But I think at the same time, we must be careful not to neglect the boy child in the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got another hand in front. You can go ahead.
Good morning, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. My name is Tulim Tetwa. I'm from Memeza. It's an organization that innovates around safety of gender-based of women and children, and also safety in teach areas. Our innovation, one of our innovations, the Memeza Community Alarm System. That is the first alarm system that SAPS and the communities and other entities can respond to in teach areas. My question is, we see a lot of support when it comes to innovation all around, from ideation up to pilot and also up to rolling out. We are working with TIA right now in the Umzumbe area in KZN, rolling out some of these projects. Now, the problem is when it comes to this, innovation has been piloted, it's working, it's making a difference in the community. When it comes to now government buying the innovation, let's say it's an innovation where government is responsible for, let's say, water purification, let's say maybe serving water in toilets, or let's say maybe community safety as we do at Memeza. What processes are there up to today for government to actually buy the innovation without going through the tender process? We worked with CETA at one time. They were busy putting together with Treasury a fund where that fund will use to buy, not to pilot, not to help, not to fund, no, to buy the innovation and to roll out as solutions. There's a lot of people that are out there doing social innovations that work, but where is government when it comes to actually buying this innovation and rolling it out and using it as a solution to a lot of social ills that we have? Where is government? Can we just hear of one innovation that government has actually bought and rolled out, and where, and what process did they use? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got some questions that are coming from online. Can you please assist in reading those questions out for us?
Chair, we don't have any that have been posted on the chat box, but we have Michael Khan who has raised his hand. So if you'd allow him to speak.
Okay. Michael Khan, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. And if the minister is in the room still, greetings to the minister. Thank you, everyone, for the huge amount of work that is being discussed here. I was part of the reference committee, so you can blame me and the rest of the committee for any errors or omissions, but put that on the side. To try and work out something useful to contribute against such a massive volume of data is a little difficult. So let me have a go. The increase in publications over the years can, to a large extent, be attributed to two factors. The one, of course, is the incentive system, and the other is international collaboration. But stay with the incentive system. We have a system in place which incentivizes scientific research and scientific outputs. In contrast, we are constantly reminded that our record in patenting is not what we would like it to be. I challenge that statement a little bit by saying that we tend to focus too strongly on the European Patent Office, PCT, and the US Patent Office, and we don't look with enough care at the patenting behavior of individual companies. But that's not really my main intervention. My main intervention is this. It's to ask the House, to ask the Minister, the DG, the DDGs, how can you incentivize mobility between industry, higher education, and the science councils? The mobility report says that there is some movement from the science councils to higher education. The previous and earlier speaker asked, do we have a system at all? And asked about linkages. I'm asking about linkages now. In Belgium, for example, you have dual appointments between a science council, or what we would call a science council, and universities. Why so many years down the line have we still not got to that point? Can we introduce in the same way that we incentivize researchers by saying, you've got a day a week as an academic to do your research? How would that translate to saying to a scientist or an engineer, you've got a day a week to work in industry, and the expectation is this will lead to some form of IPR somewhere down the line? Now, that's a really radical suggestion. Can we think about how to do that? Are there examples in other countries? I've given one. How would we make it work? We've made it work nicely, the incentive system, with all sorts of perverse incentives. But how do you do it to incentivize working in industry? Minister, DG, CEO, and all the other smart people in the room. I leave it to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khan. Do we have another question online? No? I think we've got one more question, and I think I will then, after that question, then, oh, we've got two. We'll take two more questions, and then after that, Minister, do you want to respond, and then CEO, or how do you want to do it? But let's take the two questions. We've got one at the back, and then I will then come to you, sir. All right. Noted, Minister. Thank you.
Good morning, Minister. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Utepe Moraka, and I'm from Mitochondria. Currently, we are developing fuel cells, and I just want to provide some information, basically a case study of what we have done. And part of our work really is to develop our supply chain. We are now in the bankable feasibility stage of our project, and we have started engaging with local suppliers. So as part of our system, it has critical components that really require development, and that's where innovation can really come in. But in our experience, what has happened is with our engagement with suppliers here within SA, we found that they could not develop some of these critical, in fact, all of the critical components, and we had to go abroad and find other companies that had the capacity to, in fact, develop these products. So speaking to that, one of my suggestions is at least, creating more awareness to local companies, and as well as creating other funding mechanisms, because if you look at our situation, we have a product, we know we need this critical component. So funding really can it should make, it gives a better business case in terms of funding those types of projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you are the last one.
Last but not least,
Not
thank
least.
you. Good morning, colleagues. I am Dr. Ray Rusten from the Institute of Commerce and Management, South Africa. Thank you for the good report. It's very inspiring to hear you give us the statistics. Figures don't lie. It is quite concerning to note that there is a consistent picture of decline, as the CEO has mentioned, and the rate of decline is accelerating. And with this picture in mind, one wonders about what Minister Nzimande said, the world order, where the hegemony of the United States is being challenged. We've seen the coup in Niger. It's a proxy war between the big powers, but it's already expressing itself in our continent. And to what extent is this going to affect whatever innovative programs we want to institute? But I don't want to go there. I'm not a politician. I just wanted to say that we in the Institute have been working with young people, and we've observed a tendency throughout the continent where young people come up with innovative ideas, like in Kenya, they were using urine to generate, I think, electricity or something close to that. But it was very inspiring to see what young people can do. The problem is who then takes over these young people, nurture them and develop them and fund them so that their innovative ideas can now convert into reality. Mr. Minister, I'd like to partner with you on something similar. We've been working with young people on similar projects. We watched The Dragon's Den. I don't know if any of you have watched that. The Dragon's Den, where business people come to these investors and pitch ideas and say, look, I want to make electricity from urine. Here is how I'm going to do it. And maybe we have a panel that would then say, this idea that this young person has in mind is fundable. And then the Department of Science and Technology and Innovation can come in and say, we have a budget and we run a similar program, invite young people to come with innovative ideas and give them money to implement whatever they have. That to me would inspire young people to think out of the box and begin to contribute some genuine ideas on innovation. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Are we going to have DG coming on? Thanks, DG.
Go to the front. All right. Thanks very much to these insightful questions. I thought I was coming here to listen to the report. So I will send a small invoice to Dr. Cele and the chair. So let's start with the rebel group, Lawrence. The question was the research outputs and then perhaps the link to the economy. The philosophy of the new decadal plan is exactly that we have pockets of excellence in the science research outputs, which we would like to continue to support. But we haven't made as much progress on identifying those pockets of excellence and drive some of them to innovation. So we've then embarked on this document, which is called Deepening a Knowledge Economy for Inclusivity and Enhanced Socioeconomic Impact, to do exactly that. If I had more time, I would give you some specific examples of the initiatives that we are driving from the department. Maybe I should, because it touches on the other questions earlier on. You know that we have started a program working with the Technology Innovation Agency to fund grassroots innovation. It's a well-researched package. I was a minister on TV 2 days ago watching on the ENCA. The gentleman was funded by TIA to have a system in the taxis, which the taxi owners like, the drivers don't like, that help you to geolocate your taxis, and you get a printout as they own. It's got a camera inside the taxi that it's just one example. He battled at the beginning, approached the Technology Innovation Agency. Modest 1 million rands a month. So we have made a contribution, and maybe again, these are some of the things we need to be talking a lot more about. Yes, but the drivers don't like this, Minister. I don't know why the drivers don't like this. So just to then jump to the point made by, I think, Bheki Zulu, I think it also touches on this thing of how do we get a set of programs to drive innovation. We've started to work. I'm going to give again one example. It does not mean that's the end of it. A program with the private sector, the Mineral Council, which is a mineral body, sort of a mining mineral council of private sector companies. They co-finance a program to modernize mining with a number of science councils and universities. This also touches on the issue that Mike raised earlier on. So this program, I can't remember how much for every rand that government is putting, the private sector is putting, but the private sector has identified key challenges in modernizing mining that they need. And then the science councils and the universities are providing a research program to address that. And of course, as you know, in the decadal plan, we want to replicate this in manufacturing and agriculture as well. So we think that very soon we will begin to see the results of this public-private partnership, both in terms of co-development of research activities, but hopefully co-financing. We also have 2 large-scale innovation programs in energy, as well as in the health innovation. Again, if Lawrence, you take me out to dinner and half a bottle of wine, I'll be able to tell you more about this. But they're really targeted at harnessing innovation from a number of public institutions to work together to develop. For instance, we've targeted a couple of platforms to produce some of the vaccines locally in South Africa. In energy, we've identified 2 programs, one on hydrogen fuel cells. So I'm interested in the comment made by mitochondria, but also another program on how, Minister, I'm sure you know this, that the materials that are used in electric vehicles are nickel, manganese, and cobalt, which you have in SADC, and lithium. So you can imagine how, if working together in research of these materials in sub-Saharan Africa and SADC in particular, we could be the Middle East type of driving the mineral resources that are needed for EVs. So this is what we're doing in energy at the moment, and we are trying to take this into the marketplace. On the issue of Memeza, Thuli, there are 2 specific programs that we are doing. We have made our contribution on how you use procurement for local procurement for local innovations. So there is a bill at the moment that is being amended by National Treasury to do exactly that. But in the meantime, please speak to, I don't think I've seen Boneni. We would be more than happy to link you with 2 programs at the DSI. One is called the Technology Acquisition Deployment Fund, which again is managed at TIA, and the other one is something which we call Municipal Innovation Maturity Index. So we work with specific municipalities to pilot some of the innovations that are locally developed in order to just enhance the idea of innovation. So we don't have an answer to how many of those innovations have been bought by government, but I think we are trying to develop a framework and at least an awareness that this is possible and it can be done. And then on Professor Khan, we think it's a good idea of the partnership between industry and university and science councils. We have been told that there's a professor in the room, Mike, and he was online, that's been looking at the program which we used to have, which was called THRIP, Technology and Human Resources in Industry Partnership. He's just doing a review of that work. Professor Porris is here, because we thought that program was an excellent program of the link between the public sector, research institutions, and industry. And therefore, we don't know how the new way of executing THRIP has worked, and we think it needs to be revived. And of course, this is a partnership between us and DTIC. We think that's where the proposal you're making of professors being appointed for both the industry and science councils and all. And I would agree with this, because when I was at Wits in my younger days, I remember a couple of professors who were at the CSIR and they were solving industry problems. So I agree with you. It's one of the instruments that I think we need to be doing to drive innovation. Mitochondria, we agree with you around the development of supply chain. I don't know if I have anyone from the hydrogen. I think I saw Cosmos at some stage, and Rebecca. So I'd suggest that perhaps if you raise your hand, we can speak with those colleagues, because we would be delighted to work with you on how we develop the supplier program on the fuel cell, as I've indicated, is one of the areas we would like to work on. And then on the young people innovations, we have earmarked a very small amount of money, about 30 million, to reinvigorate or to resuscitate what used to be called a youth entrepreneurship fund at TIA. And I'm told, Minister, that UNDP has agreed to co-finance that to deal exactly with innovations earmarked at young people. So I think perhaps I may have left one or two, but I seem to suggest that we've covered most of it, Chairperson. Dr. Cele, you want to add anything?
Yeah, thanks, DG. Maybe it's just two. There was a question about whether the NSI is functional or not. That's an interesting question. Beguzulu, I think, because we don't have time to clarify. If you read, if you go to our website, NECI website, there are a couple of review reports that will help you to answer that question. There is also a HESTIL report that the minister referred to. I'm not so sure, DG, if it's been released. Yeah, so the latest would be the HESTIL report. So it will give you a picture. But I want to maybe say that the white paper and the decadal plan, they've recognized the challenges and they've proposed, amongst others, that to address the coordination problem, which continues to face the system. There is an interministerial committee for science, technology, and innovation. There's going to be a presidential plenary that the minister alluded to earlier. There's budget coordination. NECI itself, which, as you would read those reports, you can't ask this question about NSI without asking about NECI. It's at the heart of the functionality or dysfunctionality of the NSI. It's always present in the questioning and the resolution of that problem. So in itself, it's going to be undergoing renewal and repositioning. That's what those policies are saying. Now, on the linkages question, I'll simply, in our report, I'll confine my response to the report. We deal with that question in two ways. The research collaborations, which we did present. So if you go to the report and you read under linkages and networks, so it will say something. And then again, under mobility, both international, as well as the question that was linked, mobility between and within sectors. That's how in the report we're dealing with the questions of linkages. I understand I'm not addressing the specific question, but I'm indicating how we're dealing with that question in the report itself. So thank you very much, teacher and Minister and Program Director.
Oh, okay. It's my turn. You see, unlike Dr. Tsele, I don't want to take a chance. I always want to ensure that I am seen. I don't know why he takes a chance and stands there. Really? Do you think everybody saw you? Well, thank you very much for the engagement. I'm going to be brief because I think also the DG has responded to this. On the issue of, let me agree very strongly on the issue of identifying initiatives that are already in communities, technology initiatives in particular, that they need to. The reason why also I welcome that is because already it's an area that we've long identified as the Department of Science and Innovation. We have a program called Grassroots Innovation Program. Because our philosophy is simple. Innovation is everywhere. You will find innovation at the high end, cutting edge, science councils, universities, bright professors and other researchers, but also at grassroots, there is lots of innovation that is taking place. And usually sometimes there is a linkage. So we would be more than happy to look at what you're doing and see if there could be prospects for collaboration. I do strongly agree. Sorry, I didn't get the name. Lawrence, yes, sorry, Lawrence, about the issue of the trouble in the economy, because to a certain extent, this decline we are seeing is not exclusively attributable, but it's largely attributable to the state of our economy as well. And the fact that we've got a very stubborn and persistent high rates of unemployment and sluggish growth and development. So it is an issue. We appreciate that you can see that despite the fact that we are one of the government departments, science and innovation, with the smallest of budgets, but we're trying our best to maximize the impact of that small amount of money that we actually have. You see, on our side, we have a decadal plan, which is a very important instrument because it's based on our experience almost from 1994 and even prior to that, on what we have done and not done in the area of science, technology, and innovation. The decadal plan is a reflection of that by saying this is where we actually now need to focus, and also closely link science to the problems we have to solve, because that's very important. Whether it's modernizing industry, whether it's mitigating climate change, whether it's alternative sources of energy and so on. So very practical. We now have an interministerial committee, which the president has asked me to chair, of ministers who come from departments that we call science intensive, like environment is an obvious one. Health is another obvious one of the science. Well, all government departments have STI, but there are those that are more intensive. And we are also working towards a very important plenary next year, early next year, which is created by the white paper, which is the presidential plenary. I think the DG hinted at that, and Dr. Tsele as well, where we will just call a meeting of all key stakeholders in a meeting led by the president himself to say, what can we do in order to be moving together? These ideas and issues that are coming here, we are listening very carefully because to us, they're going to be a very important part in preparing for that plenary, which will be a high point, not the end, but a high point that we hope will enable us to take STI to higher levels, and especially in the involvement of the private sector. The teacher has already spoken about TRIPS. There is an evaluation of that program, which was a partnership between industry and government. what lessons can we learn out of that? What more can we do? I do agree, by the way, with the issue of do not neglect the boy child. That is why, for instance, I'm starting this initiative in my sector of mobilizing males, whether they are students or academics in the sector, TVET college lecturers. But not neglecting the boy child must not mean that we produce or we nurse the boy child on stereotypes about gender. We must pay attention to the boy child to say we are no less important, but given where we come from, the issue of gender equality and women's emancipation is important and is a priority. In other words, we want to transform the boy child, even the mentality. You know, there's a book I've been reading written by a fellow psychologist, Professor Malusi Langa, who is at Wits University, who studied a group of young men from boys from age 14 to age 28 or 30. It's a longitudinal study. He just followed them up for about 12 years from Alex. I mean, it's a very moving book. I have not finished it, DG, because I just find it quite challenging to me, just reminding me of my own experience growing up as a Black boy child in Pietermaritzburg, and our stereotypes about girls. You know, it's like we own girls. We could do anything with a girl, must respond to your needs here and now, you know, why you are better and all those things. That's what is called toxic masculinity. And a lot of them, by the way, they drop out of school, you know, and so on. So what disturbs me is in some respects, how did I survive this environment where it was fashion at some stage in my township to drop out of standard 6? If you go beyond standard 6, we are a muhu, you know, as a boy. So it's very important that we attend to the issue of the boy child so that the boy child doesn't get threatened. I'm trying my best not to be long, Funeka. I just want to say that government at the moment is attending to this problem of not buying its own innovation. We're spending billions of rands on importing vaccines. This matter has raised the issue. If we produce vaccines, we now, by the way, have the capacity to produce vaccines locally for the first time, thanks to COVID. Every cloud has its silver lining. And we must make sure that the Preferential Financial Management Act is not an obstacle to that. It's an issue. So that government, we don't produce something as government, then you say, go and tender and compete with Indian companies that are subsidized by their own government on vaccines. So it's a very important issue that we are highlighting. It needs to be taken across all of government. Professor Michael Khan, my dear friend, I haven't seen you for a while. We are still as naughty as anything. Joint appointments, they're ideal, of course. So in some countries I found, I went to Mozambique to visit my counterpart, the Minister of Health. He kept me waiting and apologized that he was running late. And I say, what's the story, Minister? He says, no, I'm lecturing. I'm at Eduardo Mondlane University. I don't know how he does that, you know? I said, wow, some countries are trying that. I don't know whether I could succeed preparing for a lecture and having to meet with my DG, two competing, you know, things. But I do agree with that. So Ray, I think that the point about partnerships, I've already addressed to it. We are looking for partnerships, genuine partnerships, you know. I know, for instance, of a friend of mine at university together. He taught me blues music. He's a retired school principal. He's doing robotics and what do you call this other? Coding with primary school kids. His own initiatives, and he takes money from his own pocket, pension that he's getting paid, to actually do these kinds of things. Those kinds of projects, I'm not saying we can fund all of them. We don't have all the money in the world, but we are looking to partnerships, both at the high end as well as at grassroots level, in order to advance innovation in our country. Thank you very much, sister.
Thank you very much, Minister. And please note that I'm not the one who delayed Minister. He's the one who's been talking beyond 12 o'clock. We're all done by 12 o'clock. I'd like to take this opportunity once again to thank you, Minister, for making the time to be here and be here for the whole duration of this launch innovation. So they were very good. Voice. Okay, there we go. And we thank all the DDGs that are present, and we thank all the attendees who are here physically and also who joined virtually. And above all, we thank all the experts that have put the report together. We thank the Secretariat for the great work that they have done to put the report together. And again, we thank everyone in the room for your participation and your contribution. Thank you. Have a good afternoon. Hello, just one announcement. Can we have the NACI Council members come to the front? The NACI Council members, thank you.